Attention shoppers, all new Dietz and Watson snacks are available in the deli section. There's Dietz Nuts Meat Nuts, protein-packed sausage bites, and Dietz Chips, pickles you eat like chips. Fresh, crunchy, no added brine. And Dietz and Dats, cheese, meat, crackers, and a treat.
Yo, I told you can't be back here.
The door was unlocked. People need to know! Dietz and Watson, meat, cheese, snacks, since 1939.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Com Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, like button, subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, A-M-P-I-R-E. It's always much appreciated, especially after an ugly day like Sunday, 36-27 loss to the Detroit Lions. I'll be joined in a minute by the voice of the Commanders, Bram Weinstein, also a host on ESPN 630. Bram and I will be hosting a Therapy Tuesday on YouTube at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Join us there. You can ask some questions. You can get some comments that we'll read on the podcast. It'll be up for live streaming. So join us there, 7:30 p.m. Therapy Tuesday, and vent to your heart's content. Hey, I didn't mean to rhyme, but there we go. That's the kind of day it was. Bram and I are going to get into all the ugliness of Sunday's game, why the defense was breaking down or what happened on some plays, and why does it keep happening? And, maybe, you know what? The fact of the matter is maybe this defense at best is average. And so maybe we all have to adjust our expectations. But having said that, I think you can expect them to play certainly better than today by definite expectations. I mean, you have to play better than today if you want this team to go anywhere at all this season, because the offense showed when it gets rolling, it's a difficult thing to stop, and it's an explosive offense when they get rolling. But you got to give them some help on the other side of the ball, and today that did not exist. So Bram and I will get into all that. A couple things to note before we get started. A couple injury situations. Center Chase Rouillet was on crutches after the game. Believed that it was an ankle injury. He had his right leg was in a big sleeve wrap just to kind of help with the circulation and all that, keep it warm. But he left on crutches. If he has to miss any time, and obviously it didn't look good for him leaving, I don't know the extent of it. We'll find out more from Ron Rivera on Monday afternoon. You can check back on ESPN.com later in the day or at Twitter at John_Keim to get an update on what Rivera says or what the extent of Rouillet's injury is. Assuming he has to miss at least a little bit of time, don't know that yet, but if he does, it is a blow to the offense. Now, it's one you can overcome, but the thing that you can't understate with Rouillet, he's a very smart player. And in this offense, the center is responsible for the protections much more so than the quarterback. So his input is a big part of what they do with the protections. And so I think that's something to watch. Last year, they felt where they had Tyler Larsen to go in initially after Rouillet. Larsen still recovering from his ACL on IR. And then you also have Wes Schweitzer who can go in there as well, but he missed Sunday's game with a hamstring injury. We'll see what he can do next week. Didn't really see him practice last week, so that's going to be a fluid situation there. The other guy who left was defensive tackle Daniel Wise, also with an ankle injury. Don't know the extent of that. We'll find out more on Monday afternoon from Rivera. That, too, would be a loss because of the depth that they keep losing at tackle. They went from having a very good situation with the depth at tackle over a year ago to then a big change in the offseason, but losing two guys from that depth group is not good in the first 2 weeks. John Allen wasn't supposed to play as much as he did because he's coming off that, because he did have a little bit of a groin issue, but he did play well. He did play. He played almost, I think it was like 85% of the snaps. That's a lot for a guy in his situation. They wanted to limit that, but they couldn't because of the injury to Wise. Then also Casey Tuhill left the game with a concussion. Saw him after the game in the locker room, sitting in his locker, talking to some of his teammates. I don't know what to read into that because I've seen other guys who have done that before when they have a concussion, but they still end up missing a game or two. So he'll be in the protocol all week, and we'll know more about that on Friday. So check back for all the stuff. You can always read me on ESPN.com, and you can check out on Twitter, again, John_Keim, and you can listen to this podcast because that's where we'll have some of this information as well. Don't forget Therapy Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the Empire Media YouTube channel. Bram and I will be there talking for about 30 to 40 minutes, talking about the game, looking at your comments, reading some of those comments, playing off some of those comments as far as topics that we would talk about, and answering some of your questions. So join us there, 7:30 p.m. Tuesday, Empire Media. Thanks again. And now, here's my conversation about an ugly day in Detroit with the voice of the Commanders, Bram Weinstein.
Here on Spotify, you'll find the knowledge you need to cook pretty much anything, the understanding to explore any new hobby, and the information to visit anywhere. But actually getting where you need to do all those things, that begins at your nearest Gulf. So, let's get going. Gulf. It all starts here.
When was the last time you replaced the air filter in your HVAC? You should replace it every 3 months. Luckily, FilterBuy is here to help. They have over 600 sizes to choose from online, and most orders ship free to your home or office within 24 hours. Plus, all the filters are made in the USA, so you can worry less about pollen and dirt and toxins in the air and breathe freely with FilterBuy. Order now at filterbuy.com.
Bram, well, so in the press box, I think it was after the game or at some point during it, I made the comment that was as ugly as a first half as I've seen this team play in a while. I know they played Dallas last year. It was ugly, but there was COVID, there were injuries, yet there was no expectation of playing a whole lot better. What did you think?
Yep. Next question. I don't know what to make of it. I didn't see that coming.
No,
it was really bad. All three units.
Yeah.
The special teams were
bad.
Had shockingly bad plays
Mm-hmm.
today. The offense was as if the offensive line was completely overwhelmed, as if they hadn't watched Detroit play over their last, whatever amount of games. Like, this is what they do. They bring a tremendous amount of energy, tremendous amount of heat. They will do zero blitzes a lot. Like, so they couldn't have not been prepared for that. They had no running game whatsoever.
Right.
And then defensively, frankly, like, I didn't think they played terrible, but they gave up really big plays at inopportune times that spiraled on them. And to look up and be down 22-0 to Detroit, no offense to the Lions, that's kind of unacceptable. So I don't know what happened.
Well, and I agree. The one thing that I noticed when we were watching games like from last week, the Eagles game against the Lions, they play tough and they play hard. So, but I'm still like, that doesn't excuse, like, you figured Detroit was going to be a very hard out regardless. If they won the game, it was going to be a hard win, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I agree.
But they were also missing guys. Like, I know Ron Rivera talked about, well, they're missing some guys in the D line with the depth. Well, Detroit had their all-pro center was out. Their Pro Bowl left guard was out. Their right guard struggled last week. That's who they had in there. And so, but they played well. And defensively, they're missing their top corner, and they still played well. And the problem that I had too, Bram, with the front, there were like 3 or 4 times in the first half where they got burned by stunts. And I don't know, like, in some of them, what I don't know is, was this a plan? Was that a plan stunt by Detroit, or did the guy just loop inside because they see an opening? But there wasn't always an awareness of picking that guy up. There was one time on a sack, Trey Turner completely turns his back to the play and goes and helps out Cosme. Well, a stunt to that side, whether it's a stunt or the guy saw an opening, that's where the sack comes. So there were several plays like that hurt them. And defensively, it was the big plays, the special teams. Listen, the special teams had a chance to make a huge play, get a stop or get the ball down on the one, and they couldn't execute. They couldn't finish that one off. On the free kick, you have Wild Goose is in that gap, and it's going to be a tough play because that's, in that situation, there's a lot of space, but he ducks around the blocker and creates more of an opening. He's trying to go around rather than going through, and it's like it leaves a gap, and like that stuff kept happening. The defense was just, on those big plays, were a disaster. So let's start with the defense. I talked too much. So let's start with the defense. What's your level of concern with them after these first 2 weeks and after Sunday in particular?
High. We've given up over 800 yards.
I guess that was an easy question.
Yeah, high. I mean, but I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, before the season started. And I said, I feel way more comfortable with Carson Wentz in the offense than I do with the defense right now. I saw the way the preseason had played out and I went, this is not good. That they're not ready to go. And, this is 800 plus yards in 2 weeks. This is gashed by Jacksonville on the ground. This is a few mistakes away by Jacksonville from potentially losing, This is, again, massive big plays and breakdowns that hurt them. I do want to give the Lions credit for a couple of calls that I thought that they did that were really well timed and really well executed, like the St. Brown run on that first down play was a really well executed, tendency breaking, very good play that they ran. I want to give them credit for it. It still shouldn't be a 50-yard run, but it was a very good play. They had an adjustment late that was really good. Like Washington ran David Mayo and what is a run stopping defense on the field, and Goff saw it and audibled out of what was a clear run and then killed them up the seam on a play. So I want to give the Lions a little bit of credit here. Like, I largely think they have very good coordinators. Like Deuce Staley and Aaron Glenn, I think, are very, very good coordinators. Go look at how many points, Detroit is scoring, and go look at their personnel. And you're not going to sit there and tell me that that's like best offensive personnel. So they're able to score a lot of points, and they were missing their entire interior offensive line. So I would just say it's not even really mixed at this point. This team could very easily be 0-2 because of the defense, not because of the offense, because of the defense. And things got to change. Like the heat they brought today was mistimed. They were not able to get to them. They gave up too many big plays. There were blown assignments. And, I think largely, like, if things don't change, and they typically do, things stabilize under this staff. So I expect that they will. And I do think getting Cameron Curlback is going to be very helpful for them when that does happen. But now they're thin on the defensive line. They were already thin in the secondary and linebacker. This is teetering. So they got to be really careful here.
They do. And Cam Curl getting him back will help. But, the other thing is that, for example, remember the first big play that led to a field goal was the pass down the middle to St. Brown, wide open. So on that play, and this is where this stuff seems to happen too much. And I know, like, you put stress on a defense, so you're going to test their rules, etc. So on that play, you have the one receiver goes in motion, St. Juice goes with him. And they end up almost in a stack formation on the right, and then off the line, St. Juice stays with his man, and St. Brown cuts the middle. Jackson is behind on the outside and goes with St. Juice guy as well. So leaves it open. So somebody there messes up, and all they would say was a blown coverage. And I don't even really care who messed up. The point is, though, it was a mess up. So on the motion, St. Juice stays with his guy. So was it man, or because the way they had, I believe it was like a switch release, so they crossed at the release, does that change the rules of the play, of the coverage? Regardless, it's a mess up, but that stuff happens, and it seems, it just leads to those big plays, and that's something that we really didn't see. We need to see more improvement in that area. And even on like Swift's long run, that one wasn't a mental mess up as much as it was they just got blocked. And Detroit does a good job. Like, they handled, and this is where I give them a lot of credit. Their offensive line coach must be very good, is very good as well, because those guys were very prepared inside. And on that long one, the whole key of that defense, they want to funnel Swift back to the inside, and they did. But the tackles were blocked, and they couldn't get off their play. It was Allen and Payne, and that allowed the two other linemen to get out to Holcomb, and then Percy Butler, who was basically up in the box. And that was all they needed. And so, like, I give them credit, but like, these guys still make some of those mistakes that hurt themselves. Yeah. And that's what I think is troubling.
Yeah. On the Swift plays, like, what I saw coming in was he's very decisive. He's very fast. And he's very good. Like, I think he is, as far as between the tackle runners go, like, good. He's top 10 runner. Like, he's very, very good. He was marginalized too. He barely practiced all week, which probably showed in how many carries he actually got, because they put him on a pitch count. The third string running back came in and got a bunch of carries today. I think largely because they just couldn't lean on him too much. But I came coming in going, okay, with him, what has to happen is he has to hesitate. You have to make him hesitate. Like, if he doesn't, he's gone. And on a couple of, and granted, he's a really good player. On a couple of big plays, he didn't. And the one you're talking about was extremely well blocked.
Yeah.
James Robinson gashed them too. They had almost 7 yards carry, Jacksonville
know.
last week.
It
7
was
yards
not
carry.
good.
You know, so no, it's not good. And things have to change. And I don't know where it comes from. I do trust, you know, I know people are freaking out today, and they should, you know, they lost and they
It was
got
bad
you
loss.
know,
It was a bad
it was a
game.
bad
of the day,
loss. I
man.
mean, they were getting routed, and
Yeah.
you know, we'll get to the offense, try to figure out what in the world was going on in the first half with them, because that was the craziest thing of the day was how the offense literally could not move the ball a single play. I mean, that was outrageous what was going on. But defensively has been my concern, continues to be my concern, and is looking worse by the week, frankly. And considering what just happened in the last 2 weeks in the run game, I'm nervous about Philadelphia, and for really, really, really good reason, you know, this coming week.
I think you should be nervous about any team facing them right now because they haven't shown, or what they've shown is, here's the other thing, Bram. Maybe they're just not, I think going into last year, we expected them to be a good defense. And coming off the year before, and again, some of that was built on playing certain quarterbacks, but they also did seem to do a pretty good job as well. So yeah, the stats were built off that, but they still played well defensively. And then last year, a lot of good quarterbacks, but they didn't play well. And but we expect them to play better. Maybe they're just not all that great, and that's the concern too. Is I do think, having said that, and I talked about this with Logan Paulson before, like they should be at least average, don't you think? I mean,
Oh,
they
no
have enough
doubt.
talent to
I
be
mean,
at
no
least
doubt.
average.
Yeah.
And that's the troubling thing, is like, why aren't they? And I do think there's part of me that just says maybe they're not going to be that good, at least as far as like a certain level. But they should at least be middle of the pack,
I
and
agree.
they're not there.
I agree. Well, I mean, I look at the personnel the Lions have, and I go, I love the way they play, but
I love the way they play.
the personnel reads to me like they're going to have a hard time being a
Right.
top half defense just because of who they have. I appreciate what they do, and I know why they do it. They do it because they can't play anybody straight up. Like, they've got to do zero blitzes, and they've got to bring heat, and they've got to try to cause a little bit of mayhem. And they know they're going to be over aggressive and get caught, and they know they're going to give up points, but they want to get into a track race with people, and they feel like that's the only way they're going to win because they can't line up with anybody straight up. This team is built to line up with people straight up. Look at their defensive line. I mean, they should, when Chase Young comes back too, they should be able to do that, and they can't right now. I mean, they literally can't right now, and so it is very worrisome. Again, I'll go back to, like, this is the third year now. Early in the season, things are problematic for this team. His first 2 years, it's happened again. And then something happens that kind of steals them in the middle of the year, and things will change. So I believe they'll adjust, but there's clearly some adjustments that need to be made. Adjustment one last week was they lit a fire under Jamin Davis. I don't think it is a coincidence that he had a sack and a very nice coverage play early in the game. And I think that they knew going in that he was going to play a pivotal role because Swift was the guy that they had to stop. And so I think you're going to hear a little bit more of this. They are of the opinion now that they're not going to coddle anybody anymore. This is a do your job situation. The jobs were not done. Be very interested to hear what Ron Rivera says tomorrow when he does his press conference, to hear how he kind of characterizes it. Because I want to be fair to him. I haven't watched it back either yet. And I want to hear what he has to say tomorrow about it.
And it's funny because with Jamin, like, they did open in like a 5-1 set. So he wasn't even on the field. And then Mayo was playing early some as well. So he was rotating out more than he had the week before. But some of that is packages, whatever. But it was a good stunt that he ran, the nice game that they ran on that to get him free. The other thing, Bram, too, and one of the things that I liked with Detroit, and I haven't been able to go back and watch it all, of course, at this point, but I've been able to go back and look at some plays, but I need to see more. But an early impression is that a lot of times their coverage matched the pressure, and that made it harder on Wentz. Or you might get situations, for example, there was the first third down and 4. They're showing seven guys across the board. You don't know who's coming. They send 4, but the end drops, safety comes, and they drop 3 in the middle, and that's where they take away the shallow cross. So Wentz is under duress because I think it was Gibson didn't do a great job picking up the blitz. But they have guys covered deep, and they take away that shallow cross, so he takes away his options, and there wasn't anything for him to do but basically get tackled. So they did that a few times. And then sometimes I watch Washington and I wonder, does the coverage match the pressure? And if so, why not? And that's something that like I'm not saying that it doesn't. It's something that I absolutely wonder about though, because it does seem like they give up those big plays and some soft cushion, or and it's not just like how far they're off the corners play. It's just even down the middle of the field, they give up there's cushion. So that's something that I don't quite get. And I don't know, did you see the Derek Force quote after the game?
I did,
Yeah.
and I'm sure the coaches will be asked about that
Yeah.
because what he
And
said, scheme. Yeah.
yeah, and he did say scheme, and I was there when he said it. And the direct quote is somebody asked him about the offense. He said it was a scheme. And you know what? I'm going to find this. I'm going to call this up as we talk on Twitter because I want to make sure I quote it right. Just so people know what he said. He said, okay, he was asked about the first half issues, and he said, quote, "It was scheme. I felt like they knew exactly what we were in. It was great offensive play calling." So, what do you think when you hear that?
I'll be interested to hear what Rivera and Del Rio say about that. I'm clearly not qualified to answer that question.
Well, and
So,
that's true. And I guess, not so much whether it's scheme or not scheme, but somebody saying that. Now, the other thing is he did credit the offensive play calling. So when he talks about scheme, is it possible that he was talking about the Lions scheme and that they measure? Well, I'm not going to put
yeah, I
words
mean,
or
I
not.
think
I don't know.
this bears repeating. Like, they score a lot of points
They
these
do.
days, dating back to last year. And then who sits there and goes, Goff, Swift, St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, DJ Chark, Hawkinson. Oh, that's a dominant offense. Like,
Right.
nobody would think that. So clearly they're doing something right there. Like, they really are. They play very hard. They play with a lot of energy. When we talk about the offense, I think that's part of the story here, that they came with the type of energy I'm accustomed to seeing. And Washington didn't match it at all and looked like they got shell-shocked and overwhelmed by it. And I'm surprised because who would be surprised by this? This is what the Lions are. Like, they do this every single week, and I give them a lot of credit for it. I think considering what I think are limitations on their roster, they certainly overcome a lot of that with energy, and you have to match it. Otherwise, you're in trouble with them. And Washington was in the first half. But defensively, to go back to what we were talking about, like, I don't know exactly what he meant. I do know that he's a young player who might not realize that what he just said opened up a big can of worms.
I think that's a lot of what it is.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, like when Jack Del Rio said what he said about Jamin Davis, he knew exactly what he was doing. And even said at one point, he goes, "I've given you guys enough. I said what I wanted to say about it," knowing exactly what he meant by saying this and what would happen. I'm not sure that Derek Forrest, right after the game, realized that what he said is going to put into question the entire defensive scheme that they're playing. But that's going to be asked. And I'm sure, again, Ron Rivera is going to have to answer that question. The reality is, though, like, they're missing 3 interior offensive linemen. Their best offensive player was marginalized a little bit with an ankle injury and was on a pitch count. And they still gave up 36 points and 400 yards. Like, hello, like, that's a little on you. And if you're not willing to accept that that's a little on you, then I think you're not being realistic about it.
When you have a performance like that, that's on everybody, and that's coaches, that's players, because you still have to execute. Again, I pointed out a couple of examples where guys are in position or should be in position if you just handle your assignment the right way. And why does one guy handle it seemingly the right way, and the other guy doesn't? Why is that? And that's so, whose fault is that now if you're not getting your message across, or is the wrong guy hearing the message? I don't know. But it is on everybody. And like nobody, the coaches are not absolved of this one just because these guys missed a couple plays. Not at all. Not at all.
No, of course not. Like, of course not. Now, I'm trying to think back because, like, these 2 weeks have been so crazy topsy-turvy. It's like hard to remember everything that happened. But I mean, the St. Brown play was a bust. Someone lost him early in the first half on that long pass.
Right. And that's the one I
referenced the run play. How many other big pass plays did they have in this game? I don't recall a lot of them.
They had a couple like in the 20s, but there was the jet action. And then the other one was the long return on the free kick. But
Yep.
again, that's one where there was going to be a gap, but then
Oh,
one guy gets out of it. Again, Wild Goose looks like he's trying to avoid the blocking, duck around him to make the play rather than stay in your lane. It just created a bigger lane for him. Then
there was a,
Tressway comes flying in and misses the tackle at the
I
feet.
mean, that was a pile of special teams mistakes today.
Yes, that was as bad as special teams I've seen in a while here.
I mean,
For coverage.
let's see. They pinned him at the 2, except that Christian Holmes jumped on the ball and it goes into the end zone, gives him a touchback. Like,
Right. That
what?
was, yeah.
Dax Milne on a kickoff return had a wide open lane in the middle of the field. For some reason, ran into traffic on the right side. His
Correct.
other
It was a
return
good lane.
a lot left to be desired. They gave up this long return on the free kick off of the safety. They missed an extra point. The onside kick didn't even go anywhere near 10 yards. Like, the special teams mistakes were
Bad.
they're gonna have a serious meeting this week because
Yeah, no,
that was a lot that happened in one game. A lot.
And I'll be curious to see because Brian Robinson. So let's try and put some of this into context because like obviously defensive left going forward, what we saw today is cause for concern, not just from today. I don't know that it's, I don't think anybody can just trust, oh, it was a 1-game thing because we haven't seen evidence this since in the preseason games or the first couple of games that this is going to be a really good defense by any means. So, but with something like the kickoff return, Brian Robinson comes back in a few weeks. They hope he looked good running agility drills last week. That's a good step. But let's say he comes back in a couple of weeks, then you can put Antonio Gibson back there as a kick returner, and I think you'll get some more production out of there. Because I think Dax does a fine job as a punt returner.
Yeah, I'm not trying to kill him, but
he didn't have a good day. And
No.
the one thing that Rivera will talk about, if you're going to return it, you need to get to the 20. And there's several times he did not. So like that is what they're looking for. So it wasn't great.
I'm an adventurous person, but I'm also a careful person. We want to get out there, but we also want to make sure we're safe and our loved ones are safe. Good thing there's the OnStar Guardian app. Safety services right on our phone. We can get roadside assistance. We can share locations with friends and family. We can even get help in a crash in any vehicle on any motorcycle. Finally, something both sides of me can agree on. Adventure safely with the OnStar Guardian app. Download today from the App Store or on Google Play. Be safe out there.
The NFL's opening week was action-packed, and it's just getting started. Get ready for week 2 of touchdowns, big plays, and even bigger wins with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. This week, new customers can bet just $5 on any football game and get $250 in free bets instantly. Everyone can experience the thrill of DraftKings early win promotion. It's simple. This Sunday, bet on any NFL team to win. If your team leads by 10 at any point during the game, you get paid instantly, even if your team loses. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code KEIM, K-E-I-M, to get $250 in free bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on any football game. That's code KEIM, only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for the details.
Let's look at the offense then. So it's really hard to break down. Like it was such a weird switch that was flipped. Yeah, I said that right. That, what do you make of their day?
So here's what I thought going in. I'm like, with all these injuries, I got a hard time seeing Detroit score the way they've been scoring. I couldn't see it. I didn't envision it. But I do believe that they will come with this energy. Like they really kind of emulate the energy of the coach. And one of my big fears with this team every week, because it's been this way for 2+ years, is they do start slow in games. In general, they start slow. And so I'm like, I was describing it as like, they're just going to have to weather a storm here. And as long as they keep Detroit from scoring, and even if they have a couple, 3 and outs early, that's all right. Like that's what this team is. Like they play like their hair's on fire, and maybe when you do that, maybe you get lucky, you scheme it up right and you hit them on a big play, especially with our receivers. And that's what I was hoping would happen, but I wasn't overly concerned until we got to the 3rd or 4th or 5th possession and they had not literally gotten a first down.
No.
Not a single play was working. They had no running room whatsoever. The ball wasn't anywhere near any of their real playmaking receivers. And at times, Carson Wentz, like as good as he was in the second half, we'll get to that in a minute. In the first half, he looked very indecisive. Like, I'm not killing him on the safety. He just got beat around the edge and got hit. But like at a couple of the other sacks, the offensive line got overwhelmed, by a lot of heat. And that's what Detroit does. They're willing to take chances and do this. But there were multiple times early where there was a lot of indecisiveness from Wentz. And then even one time, one of the sacks, there was no pocket presence. He like backed into Aiden Hutchinson, not realizing he was standing behind him.
Yeah.
So they rattled them. I mean, badly rattled them in the first half, and the stats were ridiculously appalling. So I don't know what flipped in the second half. Clearly, they were a very different team. It started from the get-go. I'd love to hear what was said at halftime. I have a feeling manhood was tested, like the way London Fletcher likes to say, because that was a completely different team. But that first half was embarrassing. They couldn't run a successful play. Not one.
No, and like I said, they had the Lions did a good job presenting different looks up front as well. And even on the safety, I think it was just four-man rush. But again, a stunt to the middle. Trey Turner turns to his right to help Cosme after no, that was actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. That was a different sack. But there was one where I think Turner turns to look back at, and this is on the safety, look back at Wentz, and because I think he thought the ball may have been out.
Yeah.
Now his guy didn't get the sack, but he would have killed Wentz had Hutchinson not stripped that ball, or actually, had Harris not stripped the ball from Wentz. So there was just a bad breakdown by the line in general. But they did a better job in protection in the second half, and then you get a couple of those big plays, and I think like it almost like that just settled them down big time. That first big play to Dots, that settled them down, and once they hit their stride, Bram, this is the thing with this offense, and this is why it will be maddening for fans with this defense and for the coaches, is that you look at that offense like, just stop them and give them a chance, because once they get rolling, it's a hard offense to stop. And they can do a lot of things, and they will do a lot of things. But that's the thing. I wasn't crazy about the throwback when you're down 22-0. I'm not sure that was that was interesting, but I do like what they did in the second half. And like, I think what it shows is that in 2 games, that they have an offense that can be explosive.
The throwback thing, Cam Sims acted as if he didn't know the ball was coming to him.
He had no idea.
What? Wait, you guys have been practicing this all week. Like, this is specifically for you. Really? Like, he stopped running on that play and ran the wrong direction away from the ball. So like, he clearly did not think the ball, like he thought a different play was being run.
I'm not sure
he
what
was
he
in the
doing.
vicinity of where the ball was supposed to be, but I guess forgot that he's the end of the trick play. So that was weird. And then, the second half rolled around, and all of a sudden they were a very different team. They started hitting these big plays, and if they protect him, I think you could see how dynamic they can be. They were missing one of their best corners. Like, they should have taken advantage of this team, especially a team that's going to be that overly aggressive and bring 6-7 guys on blitzes. Like, you get an ounce of protection, you ought to have crazy matchups on the edge with people. And so, finally it kind of started to turn. And I do wonder, like, if they didn't throw the interception that was an overthrow to Logan Thomas, would that have been a different outcome? If they tackled DeAndre Swift when he fell down on a third down catch after Goff is being hit and just tapped him down and made him kick a field goal, would there have been a different outcome? I don't know. So there were a couple of those, but the hole was really deep. And I think, really, what's really, I think, alarming is, let's see, 4 halves, they gave up 22 points in the first half today. They gave up 14 more in the second half today. They gave up 19 in the second half against Jacksonville. That's going to be the worst scoring defense in the league if that keeps up. It is. So I don't care how good their offense is. If you're going to have the worst scoring defense in the league, how many games are you really going to win? So eventually it's got to come around. And frankly, the 3 points that Jacksonville got, well, if Trevor Lawrence threw a pass that wasn't 3 yards past Travis Etienne, he would have had a touchdown there and blew another touchdown in the first half. I mean, honestly, it was Jacksonville's mistakes in the red zone and misses on open touchdown throws. Otherwise, they would have scored more points. So, the defense has got to figure this. It's got to be better than this, because they're heading towards the path they were in a year ago. It was a different metric. They were awful on 3rd and long last year. This year, they're really bad defending against the run. They've been fortunate in the red zone. They've actually been very good in the red zone so far. Otherwise, I think the scores would be worse. They might have a couple of teams that have scored 30 and 40 on them. But the metrics are there that it's heading the wrong way, and it's total scoring defense. And I don't know how you're going to win. And then did they have a turnover today? I don't think they had a turnover today, right?
Nope.
No turnovers. Benjamin St. Juste had an interception that he dropped. He could have had.
Yeah.
Cole Holcomb jumped a route and nearly had one. So they came close on 2. That's it. So they have 1 turnover in 2 games, and it was I don't know what Trevor Lawrence was doing at the end of a game, just throwing the ball up for grabs. That's it. They had none in the preseason. And I know the preseason shouldn't matter, but how are you going to win if you're the worst scoring defense and you cause no turnovers? Like, how in the world are you going to win many games?
Yeah, it's kind of, no, you're not. That's the problem. You're gonna need your offense to score all the time and play perfect. I also think the field position battle hurt the offense in the first half because they were a few times starting deep in your own territory. Some of that was their own doing with the poor kickoff returns and all that. The silver lining on defense for people who are, in third down, 4 out of 13 for the line. So you have that going for you. So,
no, I mean, the third down defense was well.
Bottle.
At one point, between the 2 games, I don't know what it ended up with Detroit today, but they were like between Jacksonville and Detroit up until about the 3rd, 4th quarter, we had them at like the conversion rate in the red zone was 2 for 7. That's really good. Like that's really good. That's really good. Like they've had multiple stops. They stopping people on 4th downs. Like, so there's some situational things that are really good. That, you don't want to like kill them over everything. That is really good. Scoring defense is bad. The rush defense is bad. And they're getting hit on big plays left and right. And I do want to credit Detroit with a couple designs and a couple of audibles and alignment changes that I thought were really good by them. And, Ron Rivera said this, that team gets paid too. Like, I'll go back to,
a lot of guys said that today.
Yeah. I mean, I think Deuce Staley's a very good offensive coordinator. Yeah. I mean, just go proofs in the pudding. Like they could score. Listen, this team, that Lions team, they know exactly who they are. They got to play with reckless abandon. They got to take some chances. They got to be willing to give up some big plays. They know they're going to give up points. They're not kidding themselves into believing there's some kind of top 10 defense, and they give themselves a chance to win that way by playing this way. Washington did not match this energy, and at critical points, let massive plays happen against them. And I don't care how good their offense is or how much better it is or how much big play capability they have. They got into too big of a hole, and they're not going to be able to come back from down 22-0 to anybody on a regular basis. Like it's just literally not going to happen.
So where do they go from here? Because obviously you got the Eagles next week, and we can finish on this one, but where do they go from here? And, this is such a week-to-week league, and, that who knows where things go, but like, where do you think this goes? They have proven to be a resilient team under Ron Rivera. So where do you think this goes?
I think this is a big week. I think you're going to hear him emphasize it as a big week. Like they are back home. They're trying to keep that energy in the building. 2-0 would have ensured it. 1-1's got a lot of people probably wondering right now. Yep. So I think they're going to
ugly 1-1 after the first half.
I think they want to emphasize to the fan base, this is a big game and we know it. Obviously we're talking now. We don't know how Philadelphia is going to play tomorrow night. So I don't know what, position they're going to be in when they come in here. Clearly there's going to be a massive emphasis on stopping the run, and they've got to prove it because they played one quarterback who should run more, but doesn't. And they played another quarterback who's incapable of running. So we haven't seen them against a mobile quarterback yet. Right. Or not one that is utilized that way, so we don't know. And they're going to have to stop the run. And frankly, I think the Eagles defense, that score ended up being against Detroit a little closer than probably it should have been. I think the Eagles kind of throttled down big time when they had a big lead and kind of let Detroit back into it. If you rewatch it, you'll see.
A lot of underneath stuff.
If they really eased up, they were running the ball up the middle of the field trying to run clock and didn't realize that the Dan Campbell guys won't quit. So they learned their lesson with them. And then, but we don't know with Minnesota. So we'll see. Are they 1-1? Or are they 2-0? I don't know. So we'll find out when we get there. But what I would emphasize here is if I'm Ron Rivera, I want to message everybody. We know this is a big game at home. Like it was a big early season game at home. And, we need to keep pace with the Giants, and the Cowboys won anyway without Dak, and we'll see where Philadelphia is. And we just can't get behind them. And this is an opportunity. And then secondarily, the defense has a lot of questions to answer this week, whether Derek Forrest says it out loud or not. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered here.
There absolutely is. And that's for everybody. That's for players. And again, that's for Jack Del Rio. And because again, if your message isn't getting across, either your message is incorrect, your schemes are incorrect, or you have the wrong guys out there. If that's what it is, or guys just have to play better, make plays when they're in position. That's also part of it as well. So I do, like I said, I think they're resilient. I think they have been. Will that be enough? I do think with Jalen Hurts last year in the second game, they did a pretty good job against them defending the run. But he bailed, like last week against the Lions, he bailed the offense out a lot with his legs, and then guys like A.J. Brown took over. And so
it's funny. Fear... I want to mention that too. It's really funny. Like this week earlier, researching the game, like, the Eagles had 180 yards rushing or something like that. And their linebackers coach was asked, like, stopping the run. And he said, show me on tape where they lined up and just ran it against us. And he was pointing to, Hurts like made some crazy athletic plays because he's that guy, got out of situations and scrambled for a lot of yards. Those weren't designed run plays.
No.
And you know what? Boy, he was validated this week. The Commanders had no run game whatsoever.
That was disappointing.
Yep, it was. So we'll see this week. And I'm, obviously I'll be watching Monday Night Football like you, and just to see where the Eagles are.
Yeah, and with the run game too, it's not just as simple as Brian Robinson coming back, because it was guys up front were not, they weren't win. The line wasn't winning. So, that was some of it. It wasn't all of it, but there was in a general way. So yeah, we'll see what happens. And it's one game. They're 1-1. And as we know in the NFL, what can look catastrophic one week, the next week you're celebrating because if they win a game at home. But the difference is too, I wonder how the attendance will be affected, or the split of the attendance based off a loss like this. You have the Eagles coming in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think, I'm expecting more energy in that building still. It's too early to jump off the cliff.
No, they're 1-1.
I think it's way too early. But I do think like the thing that they can build on is this is an explosive offense. You get a few things fixed on defense, and then you can start to have some improved play. So Bram, we'll listen, and you and I will be back Tuesday night live stream on YouTube, Empire Media, AMPIRE, and we can do. I tell people it's a Therapy Tuesday session, so we'll be going over all the stuff, answering questions, and get your little doctor's hat, maybe a little stethoscope to make people feel better. So Bram, thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you Tuesday night.
All right, thanks.
This episode is brought to you by DirecTV Stream. DirecTV Stream is your home for football this season because it's the best way to catch the games you won't want to miss. And with the DirecTV Stream Sports Hub, you can follow your favorite teams and track scores all in one place. That means more ways to follow the biggest hits, drives, and wins this season. So many you may need your own touchdown dance. So get your sports together and get your TV together at DirecTV.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package.
This episode is brought to you by Samsung. Unfold the all-new Galaxy Z Fold 4 and expand your world. With Flex Mode, it stands on its own, so you're hands-free to get more done during calls. And with multi-window view, you can use up to 3 apps at the same time. Plus, the edge-to-edge screen allows you to fully immerse yourself in your favorite games and shows. Visit Samsung.com to learn more about Galaxy Z Fold 4.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Bram for joining me, and thank you, as always, for listening. Again, especially after an ugly game like this. I'll be back on Tuesday with, again, the Therapy Tuesday live 7:30 p.m. YouTube session. It'll be out on a podcast as well later that night or early on Wednesday morning. So talk to you next time.